Big round of applause for Dan Wakefield. Dan?
Thank you very much. When I was a young writer, I read that Ernest Hemingway said, if you really want to be a writer, you have to get shot at. So I immediately thought, where in the world is my best chance of getting shot at? And this was 1956. I looked at a map of the world. It was obvious that Israel offered the best shot. So I'd published 3 articles in The Nation magazine, and I went to the publisher and I said, look, if you will give me enough money to get to Israel, stay for a month, I'll write a series of articles for you. He said, well, you'll probably get into trouble, but I guess that's what you want. Anyway, he gave me a round-trip ticket on the SS Israel, a boat from New York to Haifa that took 13 days, and enough money. But I realized to stretch this thing out, I had to go work on a kibbutz where you can stay free and get fed and do whatever work they had. So I worked as a vegetable picker, a hay pitcher, and a shepherd in the Negev desert. And that turned out to be the hardest job of all, but that's another story. So while I was doing these things, I thought, but I want to find a big story, a human interest story that I can sell to one of the big slick magazines like the Saturday Evening Post and make a lot of money. And I think I found it. There is a village near Jerusalem called Beit Safafa, and it was divided in half in Israel and half in Jordan, divided by the last armistice line. And so I interviewed the people on the Israeli side, and I thought, okay, if I could only get to Jordan, interview the people on the other side, I have this great human interest story. But the trouble was you couldn't get from Israel to Jordan in that era, especially if you were a reporter, even if you were a tourist. The only way you could get there was if you were a religious pilgrim. Well, this was during my big atheist phase, but I had to get a letter from some religious person saying that I was going as a religious pilgrim over Easter to the other side of Jerusalem, which was also divided. So I thought, okay, I'm an atheist, but my grandfather was a Baptist minister in Shelbyville, Kentucky. So I looked up the only Baptist minister in Jerusalem, and I said, I want to go as a religious pilgrim. I'm a Baptist. He said, well, you live in New York, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, what Baptist church in New York? I said, the 42nd Street Baptist. Says, okay, so he wrote me a letter. So I cross over into Jordan, and I'm interviewing different political people and taking notes. And then I go down to the Jordan side of Beit Safafa, which is right on the border. And of course, it doesn't occur to me, this border is a very tense situation. And I just stroll down there, and suddenly, strolling with me on each side are 2 Arab Legion military guys. And they have on the red and white checkered Arab keffiyeh thing and the rifles and so on. And they say, oh, what are you doing? I said, I was going down to Beit Safafa, talk to some people. He said, well, where'd you come from? And I said, from Israel. And they said, Then they stopped speaking in English. And one of them did say, okay, we're taking you to the military governor in Bethlehem to hear your case. So I went to the military governor in Bethlehem, and he was a big guy in a big black coat in a dark room sitting over this big desk. And he said, from where have you come here? I said, from Israel. He says, no. From where have you come here? I said, New York. He says, no. So I tried Israel again. I've come from Israel. He says, no. So finally, he told me the right answer. He said, you have come from occupied territory. Okay, that's where I come. Anyway, he decides that I'm going to have to see Arab Legion headquarters in Jerusalem the next morning at 9. And he assigns me a guard of 2 Arab Legion soldiers who'd sit with me in the back of a car while another guy drives us to Jerusalem. I guess they thought I would jump out of the car and start a war or something. But anyway, so I had to bring the next morning all my earthly goods to the Arab Legion headquarters to be interviewed and see what my decision would be. Either I'd go to jail or I might have to fly to Cyprus, but I didn't have money to do that. Or maybe they let me go back into Israel through the Mandelbaum Gate. So I realized that night that among my earthly possessions is my notebook where I've been taking all these notes, interviewing political people, which I wasn't supposed to do. So I thought, I got to get rid of these notes. So I wadded them up in a ball, and I went outside, and I looked for a place to drop them. It seemed like there was an Arab Legion soldier on every corner. And I thought, if they see me drop the notes, they pick them up. That's even going to look more guilty. So I go back into my hotel room, and I think, okay, I'm going to burn these notes. And I wadded them up in this ball, and I held them over the toilet. And as I'm trying to burn the paper, I burn my hand, and the wad of notes falls into the toilet. So I go to fish it out, and now it's wet. And I try to squeeze the water out, but it's never going to catch on fire. And the ink is kind of running together. So I think this is the most suspicious looking thing in the world. If I leave it here, they'll find it, take it to Arab Legion headquarters. If I don't take it there, they'll know something is wrong. So I thought, this is it. I've got to do something. So I figured out the only thing to do. And as I decided this, I knew that later it would be a funny story I would tell. But at that moment, it wasn't funny at all. It was something I had to do. It was around midnight. And I wadded the paper into little balls, and I ate the notes. I spent the whole night eating the notes. And by 9 o'clock, I had eaten all the notes. I didn't eat breakfast. Went to Arab Legion headquarters. They're very irascible. What do you do? What are you doing here? You think you're trying to make peace with the Jews and Arabs? No. I just wanted to go to this little bit. Oh, why would you want to go there? You're supposed to be a religious pilgrim. Anyway, they went on and on. Then they had me step out of the room. And I knew, either they would decide my fate, to go to Cyprus where I didn't have the money to fly, or to be in jail. I could do that, or to get back into Israel. So they called me back in, and they said, all right. They obviously decided I was a crackpot, so that was pretty true too. And so they said, okay, take all your belongings. If you leave right now, within the next hour, you can go back into occupied territory. And I was never so happy to get back into occupied territory. So even though I hadn't been shot at, I thought Hemingway would be proud. Thank you.